BPod Studios.
Sports Hub headlines.
Last night's NBA All-Star game, there were only 397 points scored. Hope you took the over. East wins 211 to 186. Jaylen Brown, 36 points. Jason Tatum had 20, each of them playing around 22 minutes. Dame Lillard got the MVP at 39 points on 23 three-point attempts. LeBron James said yesterday he's hoping to finish his career with the Lakers. That's up in the air right now. Bruins will host the Dallas Stars this afternoon at TD Garden. Judd Surratt and Bob Beers will have pregame at 12:30, face-off at 1 here on the Sports Hub, and then New England Honda Dealers Bruins Radio Network. Before the game, Bees will honor Brad Marchand for his 1,000th NHL game, which happened last week. Bees placed Oscar Steen on waivers yesterday, just 1 point in 34 games this season. Former Patriots receiver Nelson Aguilar is staying in Baltimore, agreed to a one-year contract extension with the Ravens yesterday. And down in Fort Myers today, Red Sox owners John Henry and Tom Werner are expected to meet with the team. No word on whether they'll take any questions from reporters. Headlines are brought to you by the early week supper specials at the 99 restaurants. Enjoy the roast turkey dinner on Sunday, hearty meatloaf on Monday, and crispy spinach and artichoke chicken on Tuesday. You gotta love the nines. I'm Ryan Johnston on Boston's Home for Sports, 98.5 The Sports Hub. More headlines in 30 minutes.
If you've got the app, you've got Toucher and Hardy to wake you up no matter where you are.
Or who may or may not have been to jail.
Get the app. The 98.5 The Sports Hub app.
Take a little walk with me, Eddie. This hour of Toucher and Hardy is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Make every moment more with FanDuel. Ryan Johnston is in for Hardy, as Hardy is out in beautiful Captiva Island. If you're in Captiva, and a lot of you from Boston are, and you've gotten up at 7 o'clock in the morning for no reason, you can feel free to reach out to him. He'll be very excited to talk to you. All right, what is it? The Patriots have a 18,000 part documentary. It's
10 parts.
It's a full 75 hours long. It is about the dynasty of the Patriots. It's never been covered before. This is the first time. And by the way, they never talk about why Malcolm Butler didn't play, so congratulations.
Yeah, they go through the whole thing, and Belichick refuses to answer that question.
And the guy who made it got very defensive, and he's like, just because he wouldn't talk about it, it's like, no, you lost. Because Belichick let it out of the bag that you had discussed him not talking about it beforehand. But I digress. So the first two are out, and these are about the infancy of the Belichick thing, right? And so these are the nostalgic years.
2001. Is the focus of the first two episodes. The first episode takes you up to the St. Louis Rams game in the middle of the season where Brady performs poorly and Bledsoe's now back and healthy, and there's that back and forth about who should be starting quarterback. And then the second episode takes you from there up to the AFC Championship game where Brady gets hurt and Bledsoe comes in. So the first two episodes, you're not all the way to the Super Bowl where they beat the Rams yet. It's
but
really
two episodes in and they haven't won the first Super Bowl yet?
Correct.
Oh, my God.
Correct.
Well, there's 10 of them.
There are 10 episodes.
I know, but we're covering 20 years. That should be two episodes or one episode every 2 years.
It is interesting. I really enjoyed the first two episodes because Patriots fans were pure at that point. You didn't have the entitled a-holes that populate the fan base yet. You know, you had a lot of long-suffering fans, fans that were off off their rockers upset, but at the same time, you didn't have the people who would complain about everything and hold up that big blue wall if you said anything bad about the franchise.
I would take it that the Patriots were in the infancy of people caring about them.
Yes,
again,
that's correct.
Because you had the Super Bowl in, what was it, 97 was the Super Bowl?
Yes, that was the Desmond Howard Super Bowl.
Right,
yes.
so, that was kind of like you were poking around again. You had Parcells.
When Parcells showed up in 93, 94, people started caring again.
But you didn't get – but it takes like a few years, obviously, to become passionate.
Right.
So people started poking around and caring.
Yep.
So I'd imagine around 2001, you still – like you said, people appreciated it.
Yes.
Their identities weren't swept up into the Patriots organization. It was pre-internet, so no one – it was pre-Belichick drinking the orange juice.
You were still sitting on metal benches at Foxborough Stadium. You didn't have cup holders. You didn't have the shiny new facility to go to.
Because I recall, and I'm obviously a Jets fan, and I don't recall. I just was frustrated that Belichick took so many Jets players for those teams.
Well, Parcells did the exact same. Parcells did the same thing with the Giants when he took over.
Yeah, I mean, he took all those Jets like linebackers, like Roman Pfeiffer and everything else.
Yeah.
And so I believe Roman Pfeiffer was a Jet. You're talking a long time ago.
Pfeiffer was here before that, I think.
Okay, but I think he was a Jet, but I don't know. I will check. But nonetheless, I did not hate the Patriots. I was like, good for the Patriots. They've sucked for so long. They were never on TV. Good for them. I did get a taste in 97, and I'll let you, because I'm just talking about myself, but in 97, I did watch the Super Bowl. I was at Rollins with guys from New England, and it was my first taste of, you never cared about this team before, and now your accent's gotten very strong during this game.
Yeah.
I've known you for 4 years, and you've never had an accent, and now you're really piping up with this accent during this game. So that was a little bit of an intro into, you're going to be real annoying fans, but go ahead.
All right, first episode, the first thing that struck me about the first episode is there is no mention of Bill Parcells at all. They've kind of wiped him from the memory books. If there's no Bill Parcells with this franchise, A, there's no Bill Belichick, and B, there's no winning culture. Ted Johnson is not the biggest fan of this organization, but you ask him about Bill Parcells, I mean, he is revered in the football community, and the Krafts have completely wiped them from the memory banks. With this book here that it's based on, Dynasty, there's a whole passage in there about how Jonathan Kraft stood up to Parcells in his office. It's as if they love to tell the story that Big Bad Bill didn't run them over, but there's something going on there. Parcells isn't mentioned at all.
They haven't put him into the Hall of Fame?
That's a whole other issue.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a finalist every year. If anyone should go into that team's Hall of Fame, because
every year he gets passed over.
He rescued this franchise from where they were to what they became, and they refuse to acknowledge him. It is amazing to me. Couple of quick snapshots. You have Robert Kraft sitting next to Myra in his high chair. Even back in 2001, he was sitting in that high chair when they showed a photo.
You're saying that he might be someone who frequents that place in New Hampshire that just got shut down?
That's correct. That is very, very
saying
possible.
That was he being fed by a spoon?
No, he was not.
All right, it was just a high chair.
A high chair.
It was a chair that was high, not a high chair.
Not a high chair, but a chair that was high. In case you were wondering, he's been sitting in that chair for 20 or 25 years.
Well, he's not a tall man.
But the other couple interesting things were there was a press conference, and he walked off the podium and walked towards the locker room, and there's a very young Michael Felger sidling up to him and being all chummy and whispering in his ear, and I thought that was very interesting considering how Felger likes to rip this team back and forth.
Felger had a very
Belichick's
good
bud back then.
They had we've discussed it on the air. He had a very good. It's not a secret of his. He had he was personal friends with Bill Belichick. They were at Nantucket. Buddies.
The salad days of youth.
Yeah,
that's what it was in 2001.
Him and his wife or his girl. I don't know if they were married at the time. And then Bill and his lady. They were all quite a team, I guess, in Nantucket. And then Hardy told the story, and then Felger, to his credit, wrote a story that pissed off Belichick, and Belichick never talked to him again.
Yep,
I
remember. And so episode 1 goes into great detail about the Brady-Bledsoe thing. Bledsoe gets hurt. Mo Lewis knocks him out. Bledsoe's out a couple of months. Brady takes over. The team takes off. And then Belichick makes the very unpopular move to keep Brady in instead of Bledsoe. And I remember sports radio at that time. You
could hear it on
lines
YouTube.
Were drawn.
You can hear it on YouTube.
Yeah, battle lines were drawn. To give Eddie Endelman some credit back then, he was saying, "You know what? I think Brady has it." That was the argument. He has it. You need to keep him as the starting quarterback.
He did, in fact, have it.
Yeah, he did. In fairness, though, it was not all based on that. It was also Brady big hot dog safari guy.
Yes, that's
so
true, too. Brady would show up at the hot dog safari.
He would show up to Endelman's hot dog safari, so there was a certain loyalty there.
Brady at Suffolk Downs really kind of warms my heart a little bit. Makes him feel like normal folk.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Also, the hair transplants and driving the Lamborghini to the hair transplants. He was a totally different person. Go ahead.
There was really the main thing we learned in episode 1 is that when Bledsoe wanted to come back, he went behind Belichick's back and spoke to Kraft. And Kraft went to bat for Bledsoe with Belichick and said, why isn't he playing? And Bill's like, because I want Brady. Brady's my guy. And then Kraft went back to Bledsoe and basically said, let him have his day. Because if this doesn't work, we can hold him accountable, and this will blow up in his face. So even back then, and it's interesting, too, because he mentioned he liked Bledsoe like a son. Does that sound familiar?
Yeah.
He was the fifth Belichick. He was the fifth Kraft kid.
Right.
So that it rang very true to me. And then in episode 2, the great part about all of this is that Ernie Adams shows up. They interviewed Ernie Adams extensively.
Yeah, he's like the star of it, right?
Yes. Yeah, he's the star of episode 2. And one thing he said stood out to me. He said, if you're not in the building, you really don't know. Who's that sound like?
No, it sounds like Michael Lombardi. It seems like everyone who was around at that time.
Yep.
By the way, never question me again. Roman Pfeiffer, a Jet, came to the Patriots in 2001. Shut up. Well,
okay, very good.
You big old bird.
Okay, very good.
You're a wrong bird.
Very good.
I didn't even watch the thing. I know Roman Pfeiffer wasn't a big part of the documentary.
All I remember about Roman Pfeiffer is, and it was not a well-kept secret in the clubhouse, is he got special treatment. When the game was over on Sunday, Roman Pfeiffer boarded a plane and flew to California to be with his family and didn't come back until Wednesday morning. That's what they allowed him to do to keep him on the roster. That's how much Belichick loved him. Roman, don't worry about meetings. Just take a few days. And this was like week 1 of the season. Game's over. Pfeiffer boards a plane either Sunday night or Monday morning, goes home to the West Coast for 48 hours, and then would come back for meetings on Wednesday morning.
I'm sure he's bright as a daisy on Wednesday mornings. All right, good. Christopher Price covers that team, that very team, who's in a very different part right now. He will talk to us about all the goings-on with the Patriots in just a moment.
BackstageCountry.com, your online home for all things country music. Country music has so many generous artists who always seem to jump in to help those in need. We're spotlighting 5 who lead by example and lend a helping hand to charitable causes. See who made our list when you text GIVE to 45911. Text GIVE to 45911 and read all about it right now on BackstageCountry.com.
Toucher, Hardy.
You get used to sitting back and letting Daddy drive the car.
98.5 The Sports Hub.
Hey, we're Toucher and Hardy. Christopher Price is the Patriots beat writer for the Boston Globe. He's kind enough to join us on this holiday where no one is driving.
No one's listening.
No one's listening. No one's driving. It's just, Christopher, it will be podcast, so maybe later in the day people will listen to it on the podcast. But Christopher Price joins us on the Volkswagen Dealers Expert Hotline. Hello, Christopher.
I'm telling you, this Roman Pfeiffer talk, John Wallach can attest to this, is giving me life, man. I love this stuff. This 01 to 04 team with the Dynasty, that's when I first started covering this team. Yeah. And it was just, I agree with John. I heard him talking about this before. It was just different back then, man.
Yeah, it was before. I mean, just as an outsider, I didn't hate him. Like, and it was all a surprise at first, and
it was fun. It was fun to watch this team finally win.
And I almost thought that, like, good luck with Belichick, that weirdo, like with this dumb note that he left for the Jets. I remember where I was.
You remember Kevin Mannix, who is the uncle of Chris Mannix, who we have on. Kevin Mannix used to write for the Boston Herald, and Christopher Price remembers this. Mm-hmm. When they hired Belichick, Kevin Mannix, because of what he did to the Jets, called him duplicitous pond scum.
Well, Ian O'Connor from the Daily News or the Post wrote that he was going to be a massive failure too, and owns it. It's kind of funny that he still does. But I thought that Belichick was like a weirdo with like a mental problem, like the way that and then I thought it was great that the Jets got the first round pick. I thought it was like the greatest thing ever. So, and that's why I'm such a great executive. But Christopher, how about me owning Wallach with the Roman Pfeiffer thing as well? Coming in hot.
I'll say this too, man. The thing about Roman Pfeiffer, the one thing I do remember, and John is absolutely spot on about this. They loved him so much or Belichick loved him so much that he allowed him to leave after the game and didn't have to come back until Wednesday. They called him the Jinx because he never played in a playoff game before he came to New England. Brian Cox used to call him the Jinx, and he used to joke with him about just saying, you know what, we're never going to make the playoffs as long as Roman Pfeiffer is here, because he's the worst luck ever, and he goes on to win 3 Super Bowl rings in 4 years. So great guy, great interview, but yeah.
Brian Cox, another Jet that Bill Belichick brought in.
They went into great detail about that Brian Cox hit on Pathon, the Indianapolis.
Pathon,
that was the first game that Brady started that set the tone for the defense.
He's still alive, Brian Cox?
He was an assistant defensive line coach for the Falcons the year of the Falcons Patriots Super Bowl. Okay. And so it was fun to kind of go back and revisit with him. He offered to, in the lead up to that game, I know this isn't in the Dynasty, but in the lead up to the Colts game, we went in and asked him, hey, what do you think about this great Colts team? They're averaging like 40 points a game. Peyton Manning's lighting the league on fire. And he responded with, I'm not the kind of man to blank another man's blank.
Yeah, Cox was great. He was a big star.
Yeah,
I mean, based on his mouth, like he was a great quote.
And we said, Brian. Yeah, we can't really put that in the newspaper, and he just kind of shrugged his shoulders and said, well, whatever, that's my quote.
Well, now you could. You just have to put the ampersands in it. Now, was that, so you mentioned that you were covering the team back then. Was it more fun? Because was there that veil of secrecy over the organization? It sounds like there wasn't. I mean, I know Felger's relationship with Belichick was strong at that time. Was it easier to cover the team at that time?
It was a little bit easier, yeah. And also part of it, Fred, was there was no social media. There was no Twitter. There was no, racing to get stuff, online immediately. It was a different era, like journalistically. And so you could, take a little bit more time. I remember writing a whole big thing in December about how Belichick has changed. And I remember spending like 20 minutes in the locker room talking to Otis Smith in a one-on-one situation. There were guys that we talked about the Roman Pfeiffer thing. There were his guys like Roman Pfeiffer, not so much Brian Cox, but like Anthony Pleasant, Otis Smith. Those were the guys that like followed him from stop to stop, from like Cleveland, Pepper Johnson for a while, then he became the coach. But like he had those guys, and those guys were so important to that team that year that they kind of, the buy-in that those guys, those veterans demonstrated, a lot of the younger guys, kind of jumped on board.
How much do you find Twitter to be useless in your job, in that there's this race to like get just like factoids out? Because I know what you're saying, because your job as a writer really is to create context and like background. I'm not saying it right, but you know what I'm saying? Like, it's not just to state like a sentence of fact. How much do you guys resent Twitter, and is that as important today as it was 2 years ago?
I resent Twitter. I do. I see it, I think, as a really important part of the job. At the same time, the need to have something like that to be able to disseminate information. I don't want to go into detail on Twitter. That's when things get lost. Like you take a sentence of a quote that, wildly out of context, and then it gets everyone in.
Oh, geez.
Did we lose him?
Elon Musk.
I was going to say.
Just stepped up and took him off.
The Twitterazzi has taken over.
Because I am interested. I want to get him.
Or if I'm at the stadium.
Wait.
Yeah.
Okay, so we lost you for like a solid 20 seconds. So start over. So you resent Twitter. Go ahead. Why?
Yeah. Well, I think it's interesting because you need it. It's you have to have it if you're a working journalist. You really do. You have to have it if you're a working journalist. It's very, very important. But it can be a distraction. It's great for real-time information. If I want to know, like, if the Patriots are playing the Cowboys this week, and I want to know that there's a question about Dak Prescott's health status, and he was out of Wednesday's practice. That's great to be able to find that out in real time and to be able to digest it. But I think when it becomes an issue is taking quotes out of context, taking information out of context. Like you said, it's important to be able to have some sort of context and to be able to deliver a larger look at something. There's also no room for nuance, too. If there's black and white to a story, it's great. But if there's shades of gray as to something that we're discussing, I think it can be an issue sometimes. It really can. It's a great point, Fred.
How much do publishers put pressure on you guys to be first? Because you say you write these great pieces and they're uncovering information, but they're in the Globe and they're articles. How much? And I'm sure they want that from you. But how much pressure is there? Will they go like, well, hey, like so-and-so had this like thing on Twitter before you. They had it like 10 minutes before you on Twitter. Do they come down on you for that? Is that important? And if it is as important as it was, again, now as it was a couple of years ago?
Not where I am right now. And not so much in my job. But my job really on Twitter with the stuff that I do, like I wrote a piece on Elliot Wolf that came out on Friday.
Right.
And so what you want to do, the great thing about Twitter in this instance, is you want to bait the hook with just enough information to make people go, oh, look, that's a really interesting story. Okay, I'm gonna point and click on that. Mike Giardi, God bless him, has a great thing that I basically lifted from him where he takes kind of the best quote out of the story and puts that in, uses that as the tweet. And so you say, oh, okay, this looks really interesting because of this quote. I'm going to, point and click on that. So, not so much anymore, but yeah, I've had jobs before where it's important to be able to post it first. And then, you also don't want to give away too much information in the if you're a boss, you don't want to have your employee give away too much information in the tweet.
Right.
Because there's no reason to click on the story then. So it's even after all these years, we're still wrestling with how to use it properly, I think.
Yeah. Hopefully it's not forever. It doesn't seem like people are on as much anymore. All right. So you brought up, I've read the Elliot Wolf article, and Elliot Wolf, it seems like as time progresses, is going to be a big decision maker, if not the decision maker in the front office for the Patriots. And from what you're hearing, this doesn't sound like the worst idea.
No, it doesn't sound like the worst idea. The one thing, and I shared this with some folks the other day too, who were asking for more information about him. No one around the league, on or off the record, has said a bad word to me about him. This is a guy who's really, busted his ass and worked hard and, hasn't kind of coasted on his father's name when he probably could have coasted on his father's name. His father, for those who don't know, was a Hall of Fame executive, Ron Wolf, a guy who really built those Green Bay teams in the 1990s. It sounds like he's going to be the guy moving forward. His fingerprints are all over these hires: Alonzo Highsmith, Alex Van Pelt, Ben McAdoo. It's clear that he has a vision for this team, and he has kind of moved into that power vacuum that's, been created ever since the departure of Belichick. So, look, I think it's going to be a good move. I don't know. I'm being relatively optimistic here. I don't know if I'm going full Roachy on you, but it is I see it as a bit of a positive.
Chris, now the dust has kind of settled on all the moves that the Patriots have made. Coaching staff seems to be mostly in place, as is the front office. You were just talking about it. It seems like they have a lot of guys that are in their roles for the first time in their careers, starting with Elliot Wolf, who's never had final say on a draft. Gerard Mayo's never been a head coach. You have Covington, who's never been a defensive coordinator. Even Alex Van Pelt really hasn't had full play calling duties. I mean, how are you feeling about the Patriots right now? There isn't a lot of experience there, and if you add a high draft pick who's a rookie that they want to be their starting quarterback, I think there might be some problems there.
Yeah, well, I don't know if there's going to be some problems, but I will say this. I do agree with you that I would have liked for them to have hired someone in some sort of, even maybe as like a figurehead role, where you bring in an assistant head coach, associate head coach, who was also the, I don't know, the backup offensive line coach or whatever the case may be. Someone who has experience around the league, someone who could kind of be a voice in Gerard Mayo's ear. I think that Alex Van Pelt right now kind of has to serve that role. I think he's been like 29 years between coaching and playing, and so he does have that he does have that background. He does have, he's been around for an awful long time. But yeah, I agree with you, John. I think that they would be well served by finding a veteran voice on that coaching staff, and maybe there's still time to fill that role. Who knows? But they need one more veteran voice in that group.
Well, according to Pro Football Talk, there's a bunch of age discrimination in the coaching ranks. So, you got to keep an eye on that. So, there's no time. I mean, if you're not hiring a 72, 74-year-old coach, right. I mean, you just hate old people.
Where'd Fangio wind up? Is he available? Where's Fangio?
Fangio wound up in Philly, didn't he?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Fangio is a defensive coordinator.
That's a really good hire. That's a really good hire.
Well, they said that in Miami, and then it didn't do nothing for Miami. I'll tell you that, Christopher Price.
But I will say this: I think Philly's a little bit of an older defense, and so they can handle a guy who's maybe a little older, like Fangio. Maybe it would have been more old school. Who knows? But we'll see.
Gotta get those pussies in line. All right, Christopher Price, thank you for the time, sir. We appreciate you getting up on the holiday.
Thanks, guys. Take care. We'll talk soon.
See you later. Thank you so much. Yeah, Fangio, gonna get in the Philadelphia. I put a South Street and tell those thugs and druggies how to live their life. I was in a foxhole for 15 years.
You're going to go in there and clean that place out?
I'm going to go in there and I'm going to dirty it up. I'm going to clean it up. I'm going to scum it up. They're going to get you all dirty and they're going to get blood out of your fingernails. Fangio! Yeah, how's that cold steel feel under your neck? Under your chin, huh? What if Fangio just moved his arm and cut that pretty little throat of yours open? Jesus, man, yeah, how you like that?
Why would you do that?
Yeah, you got that long neck off this sit there. It's look good in two.
Okay.
Why'd you do it? To toughen you up, you puss. How's that this cold steel I put in the freezer? Yeah, it's cold, isn't it? How's it know if you're another man? Your life's in another man's hands. Fangio could do whatever he wants to you right now. Fangio could turn you into a lady if you wanted to.
Really?
Yeah.
That's not the neck. That's a little lower. You know what? That's messing with a different area.
No, I make you my lady.
Okay.
Yeah, I make you my girlfriend. There's nothing you could do. I can do with my hands. I'll drop the knife. You think I need a knife, punk? I use my bare hands and twist your freaking neck off.
That's great. That's bloodlust. Good for you, Vic.
Yeah, I got bloodlust, yeah. Me and that Jay, the only kid over there I have any respect for is that Jay Stu.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah. Like
you and Jay Stu are friends?
Yeah, I like the way he kills stuff.
Oh, so you're a cat. You don't like cats either.
I know this. So there's this girl that I with when I was in my 20s, and she's not like the best. And she,
we're gonna gloss right over that. All right.
And she, it's funny though because she was like, I don't blame her. She had a tough life, and so like she's real proud that she's got this like house and everything. And she's like, this is my kid's room, and it's great because there's he put up all the deer skulls that his dad killed.
Oh Jesus! Oh my God!
And it's like you're trying to present this like very upwardly mobile like life that you're living, and now there's the deer skulls that she's in Alabama. So
okay. Is she still there?
Well, no, she was in Atlanta, but she was she's super hot, but not the greatest life.
Sure.
I mean, that's why she allowed me to be involved with her, is because there was some damage there. But she seems to be enjoying her life and everything else. But it was funny because
Facebook friends.
I don't want to say how I know her because I don't want anyone to bother her. All right, so we'll be back. Here are the headlines.
BackstageCountry.com, your online home for all things country music. Lainey Wilson is on a roll. She's delivering great music and teaming up with some of country's hottest acts. Text Lainey to 45911 to see which 4 Lainey Wilson collabs have us talking at BackstageCountry.com. Text Lainey to 45911 to get a link to the list sent right to your phone from BackstageCountry.com.
It's called Rising and Grinding.
Start your
Got
day.
your finger on the pulse, Fred.
Begin your
Seldom
day
right and never wrong.
right here. Is that Toucher or is that Hardy?
I know, looks like a poodle. It's an effing poodle, dumbass.
The Sports Hub.
It's not Paul Westerberg. It always fools me. And you would think that I would by now know it's not Paul Westerberg. Not that I dislike this song. It starts almost exactly like World Class Fat.
We'll put that in, though. As a
If you would, it would. Thank you. If you could do
and you
that.
could say, wait a minute, this is Paul Westerberg.
And I could go, it's Paul Westerberg, and then I would be right.
There you go.
And I'd feel good about myself. Paul Westerberg, I have a friend who works in advertising, and he's this, I guess it's kind of nice because he didn't sell out, but Paul Westerberg was like, he just loves him, like he's obsessed with him. And they had this ad campaign that they wanted to use Westerberg stuff, and they flew out and they met with him, and they were like pitched him and told him how much he loved him and loved him and loved him. And then at the end, Paul Westerberg was like, nah. No. You can't. I'm not going to let you use it.
Okay.
So good for Paul Westerberg. All right. You wanted to talk about Dan Shaughnessy. He's having some medical problems.
Yeah, as a show, we send our best to Dan, who's been on the show numerous times. I mean, we were talking about it off air. The Q-tip and the pen thing will go down in history as, I think, a top 5 bit on this program.
Well, I think
it's
it's
on the air.
All right, let's not go nuts.
I think it was fantastic.
I put Do You Know the Fro over that.
Okay, do you know the fro? But
was my
Dan has
idea.
been a valuable contributor. He underwent a heart procedure recently. He said to be resting at home. We send him our best.
My original idea
recovery.
for Do You Know Your Fro was much simpler. It was punched up, but my idea for Do You Know the Fro was just, it was going to be just like, Havlicek stole the ball, and then just with the scratching noise because his afro was hitting them
So poofy.
was so loud that, and then you had to guess what the event was under a deafening sound of an afro hitting.
What was the musical hit afterwards? My white afro. My white afro.
If you go to Spotify and you just put White Afro, it comes up with a song called White Afro.
That's right.
So that's how the song White Afro was discovered.
Yes.
Not always like these big leaps. One of the things that was very disappointing to me because I was not involved in it was and Lockhart has talked about with me too, is that is it a bad band or a racehorse? Like, I came to find out that some of the bands were comedy bands. And it was like it was like being ripped away from me, the purity of it. I like the whole thing. I'm looking for a sailor thing.
Yeah,
are like 2 comedians from Europe. Like that's not a serious song.
I thought it was funny.
Yeah, but it's supposed to be. It's not funny anymore if it's supposed to be. The whole idea is that they're so bad that they're funny.
The guys who did Get Ready for Down Count, is that a real song or not?
Oh, well, I mean, I knew that was a real song, right? I mean, they were being
Get Ready for Down Count.
They were being ironic. I wasn't quite sure why we played that song.
5, 4, 2, 1. Oh, it was great.
Yeah, but it was great, but it was supposed to be.
Yeah.
Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes, I do.
Ryan does, I'm sure.
No, I get
you, I'm not so positive
No,
you understand what
I
I'm
get
saying.
it. It's
Yorkie the Clown.
If
funny.
not funny, if it's supposed to, if they're trying to be. I get it.
No, it can be. Yeah, something can be funny, but for that particular bit, yes, and you're absolutely right. The first year we did it was like Yorkie the Clown and all that
Lantern
real creepy
Waist.
stuff.
Yeah.
Lantern Waist.
Yeah.
There was all that. But then I understand it's difficult to do every year. But then when I found out there were like some of these, like I'm looking for a sailor, because I'm like, wow, I've got to see what this guy looks like. So I YouTubed it, and first of all I had to YouTube was like worst songs, and it came up, and I'm like, like that, and then it was these guys, and they're a comedy team. All right, so Mike Florio.
The less you know, Fred. That's the less. Now you're going to tell me that the War of the Roses is fake.
But I gave you a website that has an infinite amount of sincerely bad bands.
Yes, that Instagram. Yes.
Yeah, like so it's not like they're hard to find. Like I have an infinite amount of bad music I could give to you. But Mike Florio is the Yorkie the Clown of NFL writers. I mean, he's really I don't think he's very intelligent.
He's an attorney.
I don't think he's very intelligent. I don't know if that's a prerequisite of passing the bar, is that you have to be some genius. Here's his article. I'm just going to read you the beginning. The NFL's chronic struggles with racial bias in the hiring of coaches and general managers has had, in some strange way, an indirect benefit for the league.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it really has.
Okay.
And so for all of you minorities who haven't been hired, the good news is you've had an indirect benefit for the league.
Okay.
It has obscured the question of whether the league also has a bias against older coaches. Now, what is the difference between not hiring a minority as a coach and not hiring a coach in his 70s? I'll tell you right off the bat. There's a reason not to hire the coach in their 70s, in that they're not going to be around for a long time. Not hiring a minority, there's not that issue. You're not hiring a minority if they're a minority because of a reason that wouldn't affect their ability to do the job. Hiring Pete Carroll right now, there's a window of which he can no longer coach anymore, in that he may die.
Ideally, when you hire a new head coach, you'd like them to be around for like 10 or 15 years and win multiple championships.
And as someone with parents in their 80s, I can assure you they're not as sharp anymore.
There's no evidence of that.
Oh, no. They don't mentally
at all.
decline at all. My mom is sharp as a tack. The idea that she's told me on numerous occasions when I complain about my dog just to get rid of him is a sign of someone that's something she would have done 20 years ago. It just said, get rid of the dog. I'm not talking about your 60s. I'm talking about someone in their 70s. Mm-hmm. If you're looking to build and you're starting at the bottom and you're looking to build something that's going to take 5 years, chances are the 77-year-old's not going to be as sharp as a let's go crazy 60-year-old. Can you believe that sense? The NFL's chronic struggles with racial bias and hiring of coaches and general managers has had, in a strange sort of way, an indirect benefit for the league. So he's such an idiot.
That's a spectacular sentence.
So it's a really dumb sentence.
I think the NFL needs to institute the Marv Levy rule, and you have to, when you have a coaching hire that you need to make, you should have to interview somebody over the age of 75.
Yeah, exactly. Can you imagine?
Cool. Let's do that.
Yeah, you got to get them there, and then you know how that long that interview is going to take for them to get to the point?
Nap time's at like 2, so you have to.
You're going to have to break for dinner at 4.
You got to get them to pick up their phone. That's one.
Yeah.
Meeting takes place at 6:15 a.m. because they've been up for 3 hours.
You imagine the Zoom call where you can only see the top of the guy's head? You can't do it virtually because the guy doesn't know where the camera is.
I mean, it's the most ridiculous thing. Like, I'm not hiring a Latino coach, a 50-year-old Latino coach because he's a Latino. Well, there's no reason for that. There's no practical reason. You're just doing it based on your racism. Not hiring Pete Carroll or Bill Belichick. There's a reason. This rebuild might take 5 years. Well, he'll be 79. And you're not as sharp.
We fired our last coach because our team is terrible, and it's going to take a while to get us back to the playoffs.
And when someone dies at 79, it's sad they're gone, but it's not some tragedy that they died at 79.
Doesn't take you by surprise.
God,
no.
We have such a problem accepting that. We really do. There's an age discrimination problem. I mean, there's a perfectly good 90-year-old guy out there that's just chomping at the bit to get involved.
comes in with their walker.
It's 79 years
ready.
old, and you're asking him to work like 12-hour days, 14-hour days.
These guys are working 18,
Yeah,
20-hour
seriously, people
days.
sleep at the office sometimes looking at film.
But we all know that's not a smart
That's true.
way.
For an older guy, it wouldn't be a problem to sleep in the office, I don't think.
No, well, that's when they're sleeping at 3 o'clock.
Seriously.
I mean, that is, I don't even have to read you the article. That's the article. There's all this minority problems, and really had an indirect benefit. Because you want to be known as like being incredibly racist as long as it covers up your ageism. Ageism. That's hysterical.
Florio's got people suing the NFL over the age discrimination thing. This won't change until somebody files a lawsuit.
I can't wait until that goes to court and they can just nip it in the bud in 10 seconds. Yep, he didn't hire him because he was 72. He didn't want to. He thought he was too old. There you go. That's it.
Thought perhaps he'd have a difficult time relating to the 25-year-old athletes we've got in our locker room.
Guy who's a third,
guys who were born
his
after
age.
his 50th birthday.
Yeah, like these guys like were. Oh, Bear Bryant's my idol. Well, Bear Bryant was like killing people by making them run until and not giving them water.
Have you ever seen the Junction Boys? Yeah,
Ay,
I'm pretty sure that's a reason.
Yeah, you watch
not
to
hire.
Watch the Junction Boys and go, that's a good guy. The Bear Bryant was the greatest.
Good God.
Yeah, he stunk. But he was banging that secretary like nobody's business.
Nothing about the bar.
The bear. He ruined me for other man. They got a minority. But them not hiring the blacks it's pretty good for them because it made them not. Now we know why Pete Carroll didn't get a new job.
And I grabbed it and I posed.
A different thing, but yeah.
Oh,
Sorry, that wasn't the bear. That
Well,
was
it might have been the bear.
Whatever.
That
It was,
could have been
it was
the
the
bear.
lady that was nailing the bear.
Could have been the bear. Are we sure it wasn't?
And I posed.
No, that was
No,
when
that was
she
her
had the
hemorrhoid.
roids.
Oh, that was the hemorrhoid. Okay.
That was her hemorrhoid.
I thought he was talking about something else.
No, yeah. No, she didn't use her hand.
Okay.
It was all biblical with Bear. He demanded it to be